Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Mike Fisher, Milwaukee-based theater writer and dramaturg.
And I'm Jen Uphoff-Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company. And this is Theater Forward, a monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insights into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 136 of Theater Forward.
My. Okay.
Yeah, that number keeps climbing. And in this episode, we are very much going to focus on our regional area here because we are going to check in on World Premiere Wisconsin 2.0, which is taking place all over the state throughout 2026. We're going to chat about what's changed since the inaugural festival in 2023 and what we've been learning about both new play development and our theater ecosystem as a result. So I'm really excited to chat about this with both of you.
Same.
All three of us were super, super involved in the first outing of World Premiere Wisconsin. That was something, Julie, that we cooked up here at Forward and then brought in theaters from all over. Mike, you were the festival journalist in 2023 and really seeing everything and writing about everything. And, that first festival, we'll get into the stats of it in a moment, but it was a big success. And there were 3 goals that became 4 goals we set when we did World Premiere Wisconsin in 2023. Those goals were to build relationships between theater makers and producers across our state, to encourage the production and investment in new plays, to publicize Wisconsin theater, both within our own borders, but especially beyond our borders, to make the national ecosystem more aware of what was happening here in Wisconsin. And then, of course, during the time we were planning WPW, COVID happened. And because of the timing of the first festival being in 2023, we used it to sort of demonstrate this, resilience of Wisconsin theaters, this sort of coming back strong story that was very true. And it gave us a chance to talk about it. So those were the goals. And as we met both as the small planning team, but also we had sort of big scale gatherings of participants in the festival from all over the state to talk about how it went and to talk about whether we wanted to do it again, because that was a question. We set these goals and for the most part, we really achieved them. There was one where I really felt we fell short of our ambitions, but it would have been absolutely fine to stop, to say we set out to do something big. We did it. It garnered all these great results, pat ourselves on the shoulders, move on with our lives. Mm-hmm. But there was real hunger to bring it back. And so we have, and we've changed a few things. The festival is now a year long instead of 4 months. And we can talk about some of the reasons, but getting more people, more companies to participate was a big part of it. The building relationships part, we can talk more about that, but huge success. The encouraging new plays, fantastic. Where we didn't get as far as we'd hoped was on the sort of publicity angle of getting people outside of Wisconsin to talk about what was going on here. There were some inroads and again, some success stories we can talk about, but that was frustrating. And I think it was partly because it was really beyond our control in a lot of ways. And so as we planned the 2026 festival, we kind of took that off of our goal list and said, look, that'll happen if it happens. And instead, we want to start working on how you build audience enthusiasm for new work, because we thought that would not only benefit World Premiere Wisconsin, but would be a long-lasting benefit for theater makers across our state, no matter what they were working on. So that kind of tees up our evolving goals. And before we go any further, Julie, do you want to share some stats about participation?
You bet. Let's see, in 2023, that was only 4 months, as you said, Jen. But in those 4 months, we had 47 world premiere productions, 45 producing theaters. So that meant a couple theaters did more than one premiere. In 15 unique communities. I do know that we looked at, where those 15 communities were. We were wondering about that west side of Wisconsin. happy to report we've got a bunch of them this year. But we did have two American Theater Critic Association the finalists in that year. One was The Heart Sellers by Lloyd Sue, and that was produced by Milwaukee Rep. And then I'll Carry Your Heart With Me by Jennifer Blackmer, and that was done at Third Avenue Playworks. So very exciting that got national press, even though World Premiere Wisconsin did not as much as we would have liked. Now, the 2026 is the whole year. Right now, we've got 100 world premieres scheduled, estimated 500 performances, 56 producing theaters. That's counting. That keeps going up. The 15 festival theaters contributed the financial sustainability, and we're growing and growing. And I am so happy to see that World Premiere Wisconsin logo all around the state. I will say, because he's sitting right, is in my view right now. The one thing in 2026 that I really miss is Mike Fisher's articles about every one of those shows in 2023.
Cosign.
And that was really, really special. And there's reasons we weren't able to do that, unfortunately. And it all really comes down to some marketing and some finances.
Yeah, I mean, the way to sort of think of that is a glass half full, though, and it's in line with focusing more on ourselves and less about projecting an image of ourselves outward. Is at the end of the day, we can be spending our time, those in Wisconsin, those in regional theater generally, playing for New York and playing for New York's attention. And it's a fool's game, partly because so many theater makers in New York still have that New Yorker cartoon view of the world, which is that the world stops at the Hudson River. And that's not going to change in ways that are both frustrating, but also kind of humorous when you think about how theater historically in this country sort of generated from the regions, not from New York City. So there's that. But there's also the fact that, ultimately we have to build, all of us in whatever theater community we're in, we need to build regional networks. I mean, and that's true in New York State as well as it is in Wisconsin. Networks where what matters is less about publicity in an era of declining a critical attention span and declining reviews and looking to those sorts of sources to tell us what's good and what isn't, and more to fostering a conversation among ourselves about what theater can be, about what theater should be, about what we think of the work that we're seeing together. And that is something which in a yes, more quiet way, but ultimately potentially more sustainable way, you're seeing this year. I mean, I love the fact that there are so many more companies and so many more regions and so many more people involved this year. If we're really about building a community in Wisconsin of theater makers, whether or not it's reverberating in some way that, you can put into a press clip book, is less important than the conversations we're making possible. And I think it will be sustainable in a way that is ultimately truer to the original vision of what World Premiere of Wisconsin is.
Yeah, there's been a real, thanks for saying that, Mike. There's been a shift in how the World Premiere Wisconsin organization, if you will, which is so minute and tiny, has changed this time in terms of what we are providing to the festival. So, to get into the sort of nuts and bolts of it a little bit, last time we had a little bit of money, a little seed money from a few of the theaters, and then we got some support from various convention and visitors bureaus and the main centers of Madison, Milwaukee, and Door County. We got a large grant from the state of Wisconsin from the essentially it's the Convention and Tourism Bureau that gave us some seed money, and it's a kind of grant that's only available the first time you do something new, and that funded a ton of print ads, digital ads all over the state during the course of the festival. And so we took those resources. We had a part-time festival producer, the fabulous Michael Cody, who we were working with, and we got the thing marketed all over, and that was great. But looking to repeating the festival in 2026, we had to look, among other things, at structure and funding. One of the biggest projects that those of us who were involved in sort of leading the effort took on over the 3 years between festivals is we became a nonprofit. We actually set up our 501c3 status, and anyone who's been through that before knows what a massive and lengthy undertaking that is. We formed a board of directors. So both Julie and I serve on that board alongside folks from 10 Chimneys Foundation, Milwaukee Rep, and Northern Sky, sort of the original lead producing theaters. And we built that infrastructure for the long run to keep World Premiere Wisconsin going. And on a funding level, we knew that state money wasn't coming back. We certainly hoped we would get some corporate support. But again, anyone listening to this who works for a nonprofit organization knows that there is a vanishingly small pot of corporate funding available to support the arts. Very little grant money. We applied for some very big grants. None of them came through. Again, that it will be familiar to anybody running a nonprofit. And so really nearly all of our funding thus far has come from the theaters that are involved. When we finished the festival in 2023, we asked folks at theaters all across the state who had participated the first time if they would be up for contributing 0.1% of their annual operating budget to the work of World Premiere Wisconsin. And a wonderful number of folks said yes to that. What I love about that funding model is it puts everyone's skin in the game, but at a level that is sustainable for each individual organization. So we have companies that are giving us $50 because that's 0.1% of their annual budget. And then you go all the way up to, one of our lead producing theaters, Milwaukee Rep, the, sort of flagship theater in the state with a budget, let's just say much, much larger than that. And I really love the way, all of these different theaters are putting their skin in the game to make this happen. And so even on a shoestring budget, I think that we've been able to really continue to grow this community of theaters and theater makers that are participating in World Premiere Wisconsin. And that excites me.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny since you mentioned the rep. I mean, Chad Bauman, the incredibly smart and forward-looking it's not executive director. It's a higher falutin title than that. But basically like the
Chakota executive director.
Yeah, whatever. The top dog with Mark Clemens at Milwaukee Rep, has started a Substack several months ago, which is really excellent. And he had a column just a few weeks ago called The Fourth Turning. Something about the fourth turning, and which is a book that and also a play that some of us really love, but a book about how every 80 years you have a turn and it's sort of a cycle back in this sort of history of the world. And he's thinking, Chad is, and he was riffing off of Oscar Eustis, basically saying regional theater is dead. Thanks, Oscar, since you came from Minnesota originally. That, and Chad's like, well, maybe what he's really saying is we are now turning back to a place where we were 80 years ago when regional theater was being born, and that's something we need to be thinking about and need to be doing in a way that is not only less focused on New York, but is about building all of these things, Jen, that you're talking about on a local level. And that, again, in ways that are quieter, has its own sustaining power. So when you look back at the origins of the community theater community with the, as in communities, I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, the origins of the community theater in the United States, which grew into the regional theater movement, had a very strong component in Wisconsin itself, where thousands of people would turn out for these productions. We're talking like 1912, 1920, I mean, way back. And that kind of energy which led to and fed into the idea of the Wisconsin idea, which is that education in this state should be consistent with the state's borders. It's not just something that happens at UW-Madison. Led to story workshops being done, organized and systemic all over the state, which fed into the predecessor organizations of Northern Sky Theater, and which allowed for folk stories and the stories of the people to be gathered in ways which may have forever been lost, which is now celebrated in a way that not only gets outside recognition. The New York Times with Elizabeth Vincitelli did a nice story on Northern Sky last year, but also turns around again, and maybe we'll get to this at some point, to one of the themes that Northern Sky talks about, which is sea shanties being at the core of a world premiere play, which is going to be done at Forward as the first play of our season, Steady She Goes, by Erica Berman. And so these little things that you don't notice that are part of creating a network like World Premiere Wisconsin end up seeding work down the road. It's not just that we're doing world premieres now. They're fostering an environment in which world premieres, because communities are strong and believe in the theater they're doing, will come back and make more such work in the future. And it really is a pay it forward without the pay part sort of model. And it's kind of inspiring when you think about it that way. That's a 100-year history that is ending right here in World Premiere Wisconsin 2.0. I shouldn't say ending, continuing through and then beyond this moment in 2026.
Thank you, Mike. And I absolutely believe that regional theater is not dead. I think it is absolutely, especially in this state, it's thriving. And I think that we have turned not inward so much as we recognize that our mission is to take care of our community. And I think with these new plays, we're getting more and more people involved. We're getting more and more audiences then recognizing the need for new plays. And there might be people and companies that this prompted them to do the play they've always wanted to do. And that makes a richer community as well.
Yeah. We know that's true. We know that there are world premieres that are taking place this year as part of the festival that would not have happened if not for the festival. And that is thrilling and reason in and of itself to do this. So many delicious things in what you both just said. I want to spare one brief thought for the slightly over maligned Oscar Eustace, who did, I think, try to make a complex point that I mostly, and not fully, but mostly agree with. And he did get, sound bit down to something, I think, more black and white than what he actually said.
Fair.
However, it was still said with a tremendously New York centric perspective that did not convey a deep degree of knowledge of what is happening across the country. But the point that how regional theaters work, how they are funded, how they serve their communities or fail to serve their communities, and how that impacts their longevity. I do think we're seeing some real evolution happening, and whether it's a turning, as Chad referred to it, or not, we are, I think, living through some inflection points that are only partially due to the pandemic. But yeah, Julie, to what you were saying about all of these plays happening, all these communities participating, how much new work is happening, and it gets me thinking about a couple of things. One is just the fact that it has gotten, I think, an awareness of new work and producing new work to permeate our statewide conversation in the theater in ways that I did not see before. And that plays out in that we, at World Premiere Wisconsin, so I'm chair of the board. I get, copies of emails that are sent to us through our website and such. Throughout, like in the off years when we weren't hosting a festival, we would get emails from people saying, hey, I'm doing a world premiere. Can that be part of the festival? We've already had people reaching out I'm doing a world premiere in 2027. Can I be part of the festival? And we have to say, well, we're not officially doing a festival that year, but we can, through our social media accounts, we can still promote what you do. In 2024 and 2025, when we were in between our two festival years, as World Premiere Wisconsin, we tried to highlight other premieres that were happening in the state. Also, the next steps that the 23 premiere plays were taking. When Lidsa's play was winning prizes, when it became when it was on the top 10 most produced list, we talked about it. We talked about what happened with Artemisia, that was Forward's world premiere by Lauren Gunderson here. We tried to celebrate what was happening with those. Another thing that we did as we finished the first festival, and I'm hoping we'll do that again this year, we created this beautiful lookbook that you can see on the World Premiere Wisconsin website, and it really distills all of the plays that were produced. It's both kind of a yearbook for everyone who participated, but it's also a promotional piece for literary agents and producers around the country who might be looking for new plays. And it's a way of helping those plays, go out further into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a few plays that were part of that first festival have gone out into the world and to productions outside of Wisconsin. And that's really great. But I also think that we are seeing increasing enthusiasm from audiences for new work. Now, I am not going to pretend for even a moment that we have achieved our goal of that I said at the beginning of this podcast, that one of our 26 goals was to, I should say 2026 goals. We did not have 26 goals. But one of our goals for this year was to increase audience appetite and enthusiasm for new work. Now, if we were, dusting off our hands and going, done, we would write a book and everybody would hire us to come and tell their theaters how to do it. But we are seeing building audience enthusiasm. We are seeing an increased appetite for new work. Something that we noticed here at Forward as we finished our most recent season, that concluded in April of 2026 with one of our two World Premiere Wisconsin full productions, Lady Disdain by Lauren Gunderson. That play and another world premiere that we did the prior season, not officially part of World Premiere Wisconsin, but the world premiere of Murder Girl by Heidi Armbruster. Those are the top two best attended plays, straight plays, that we have ever done in our 17 years at Forward. And they were both brand new. And that's really cool. It's really, really cool. And they were not just incredibly well attended, they were incredibly well received. Murder Girl has gone on to a production at Milwaukee Chamber Theater in Milwaukee last fall, and it's going to be done this fall at Peninsula Players up in Door County. So that play is having some tremendous legs. It's thrilling to see audiences showing up and saying, we're excited that it's new.
Right. And taking the chance, not being scared of it. We had talked about, remember there was that sort of retreat with the participating theaters and, how do we make it like the film festivals that, you go to a bunch and some are not going to be your favorites, but you're still going to go. And I think we're seeing that. We wouldn't see this much participation if theaters weren't also seeing the audience for it.
Yeah. And there's still so much more to come. Part of the reason that we wanted to talk about WPW now in August, we've got a little bit more than half of the festival year behind us. We wanted to sort of see how the year was playing out so that we could talk about that. But there's also still so much to come, because, we still have 4 more months in the year. There are at least 20 more world premieres coming between September, October, November, December. And probably more than that will come because projects keep getting added, which again is thrilling. The big professional companies we've set out our seasons planned, far in advance. We sort of know what is coming from each of those. But what's been thrilling during this year, and it's partly because of the conversation around World Premiere Wisconsin online and at theater events, is that lots more of the smaller companies around the state outside of the 3 major metropolitan areas are sort of popping up and going, wait, I want to do a world premiere. We want to be part of this. And whether that's at a community theater, at a college theater, a high school theater, those are popping up, and it's great. Like almost every week we get another email from someone saying, hey, I'm going to do a world premiere in a month or 2 months or 3 months. How do I become part of this? And we say, tell us the deets, and you're part of it.
Right.
Well, and the great thing about that is, well, there's 2 things I think that come out of that. First of all, it levels the playing field. I mean, I'm not going to suggest that a company with the budget the size of the Milwaukee Rep is doing, and from production values, is working at the same level as somebody in a tiny black box theater in downtown Milwaukee. Of course, that's not true. But in terms of thinking of them both as part of this festival, you're seeing them in conversation with each other, which is enormously healthy for any theater ecosystem, because, Chicago being the best example of this, it's the black box theaters, the famous black box theaters in Chicago, that fed and continue to feed and challenge a more sort of edgy format from the major theaters in that city. And so that's a really good conversation to happen. And it also is exposure, right? So you're thinking, if you're attracted originally to World Premiere Wisconsin because you see a brochure when you go to a show at Forward Theater or American Players Theater or something like that, or learn about it from somebody there and then go on the website and then learn about these smaller companies, you might be checking out theater companies you didn't know anything about,
Right.
communities you didn't know anything about. I mean, when I got to travel around in 2023, there were places there were certainly theater companies I had never been to. There were towns I had never been to. And I've lived here for 30 years. So exposing those kinds of things and bringing them all under one umbrella, again, that's what it means to be part of a community. It means that all the voices in some way get heard. And one of the great things about any rubric like this is it includes more voices in the conversation and really makes you think, as you do when you're seeing any sort of series of plays together. Plays talk to each other in the same way that we learn to talk to each other through them. And that is a really cool thing about this festival.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really excited about, one aspect of Steady She Goes, the piece that Forward's going to be producing next month in September as part of the festival, is that it actually took a partnership with a semi-professional company here in Madison to bring this premiere play to the stage. And actually beyond that, another company in Milwaukee. So this is a fun sort of pathway for this new play. So the brilliant playwright Erica Berman, who wrote Steady She Goes, we've known her for many years. She works at Children's Theater of Madison. We've produced one of her plays in the past as part of our Wisconsin Writes New Play Festival. She had a play that was done, Finder in the North Star, at CTM as part of the 2023 World Premiere Wisconsin Festival. So our Wisconsin Writes 2024 Festival, Erica submitted this play, Steady She Goes, for Wisconsin Writes. And it's a play with music. It uses sea shanties to tell the true tale of a woman captaining a clipper ship around Cape Horn in 1850s. And as part of as part of our Wisconsin Writes, we don't really have the capacity to do the development of a musical piece. There's just so much more involved, cost and logistic wise. We didn't really have the capacity. So we weren't able to select it for Wisconsin Writes. But we said to Erica, this play really interests us, and we might be very interested in actually producing it and developing it outside of Wisconsin Writes for a full production. And at that point, we planted the seeds for doing it in 2026. Now, in the meantime, Milwaukee Chamber Theater had been involved in helping select plays for Wisconsin Writes. They were really intrigued by it. They did a reading of it at Chamber Theater last year, beginning of 2025. And that helped develop the script. Then we went to our friends at Four Seasons Theater here in Madison that focuses on musicals. led by the incomparable Sarah Marty. And we said, do you want to, be involved in the development of this piece? And Four Seasons was all in, and they did a workshop production. It wasn't a fully staged production. It was more of a staged reading, but it was with a really in-depth rehearsal process. Mm-hmm. They performed that reading in the Playhouse at Overture Center this past March. It was part of World Premiere Wisconsin under that umbrella. And they really focused on developing the music, the underscoring, the arrangements, which songs belong where, who should be singing them. And out of that process, led by Scott Campbell, their great music director for the piece, created the songbook, created the score and the arrangements for the production that we will then be mounting next month. And so bringing their expertise to this piece. And so when Steady She Goes has its fully produced world premiere with Forward in September, it will have been helped along its journey by 2 other companies in our state as well. And to me, that's kind of what World Premiere Wisconsin is all about.
Right. Right. That we all work together. We're all going to, get some recognition for that. And the journey is so great. I mean, and we've talked, you mentioned Murder Girl. The next step of this that we really want, that World Premiere Wisconsin doesn't really have control over, is that second production. And, and where does this go then afterwards we are always interested in seeing these pieces go further, get their second production, continue their journey. Steady She Goes already has a great journey. I'd love to see it have more of a journey.
Yeah. Well hopefully it will.
I'm struck by the comments of both of you, because both of you are focusing in what you're saying on process, right? Which means it's less about an event. It's less about a moment, and it's more about something that continues over time. And it's sort of, I know there were many reasons why we went from 4 months to a year this year, but one of the benefits of going from 4 months to a year is it becomes less of an event. This is something where, when you think about these premieres taking place over a full year, it's easier to sort of think of it as a process of unfolding over a long time, as part of just the ecosystem of Wisconsin. And so you've gone from 4 months to a year. And really what that does is open you up to ways of thinking about World Premiere Wisconsin is ongoing. It goes on, like the person who asked you, Jen, about a 2027 play that we can promote on social media. It continues past 2026 into 2027, into the 2030s. It's not something that we have to caption, or sort of cabin in a way that limits it to a particular time period, because that is at the end what we are trying to build. We want Steady She Goes here, right? We want this to be something that continues and continues and continues.
Nicely done, Mike.
Yep. And so, as we go into the remainder of 2026, I just want to encourage folks to get out and see some more premieres. I'm just looking at the list of what is coming, what is yet coming up in the festival later this year. And it's everywhere. So we've got shows, of course, in Milwaukee, in Door County, in Green Bay, in the Madison area. There's a world premiere coming in Shawano. There's a world premiere coming in Slinger, Wisconsin. There are pieces coming up all over the state, and that it warms my little heart. It just warms my little heart. And I really hope that folks listening to this will make the effort to go see a world premiere at a theater they already know, and support that theater doing new works, and make the effort to go see a world premiere at a theater you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amen.
Great.
Amen.
Yes.
And on that charge, I think we will say action item. We will say that is all for this episode of Theater Forward, a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jen Uphoff Gray.
And I'm Julie Swenson.
And I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced by Scott Hayden. Banish him, and you do banish all the world. And it's thanks to Scott that you can follow us or share your thoughts on Facebook. That's at Theater Forward. Theater, as always, because this is the world, after all, spelled ER.
And if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Boy, we'd like to hear from you.
We are so grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.